name is Clint. I'm an alcoholic. And I'm glad to be here. A couple of guys were kind enough, 3 guys were kind enough to come down here with me today. And what we're going to do today is talk about the steps of the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. We are going to do that from the point of view of, in a sense, the point of view of why take them at all. What would really be the point of taking them? One of the things that is interesting to look at before we get too far into it is whether anybody in the room qualifies as somebody that should be even thinking about these. Everybody has raised their hand as an alcoholic, I gather. Is there anybody here that's not an alcoholic in the room? You'd be welcome if you are, yeah. Are you? You're an addict, okay. Anybody else in that category? A couple of guys. Are you also alcoholic or just addict? Addict. Okay, what's your name? Saul? Why don't you come on up here and join these alcoholics, Saul? Just move up a little bit. You won't catch it. Come on. All right. Good. Thank you. Appreciate that. That makes me feel a little more comfortable. Okay, we got another addict. What's your name? Roddy. Okay, welcome. Good to have you here. If you guys do catch alcoholism today, it's okay too. It's floating around, it's in here. And it could happen to you. There is a point in our lives where we have placed ourselves beyond human aid. And the critical piece of that is whether we're aware that there's no human power that's going to get it done for us. And that leads me to the point of a purpose. Whether we're here to learn a way that we can better manage our own lives, or learn a way that there might be a power greater than we are that can handle that for us, is kind of a critical distinction. When I first came to Alcoholics Anonymous, I came here not believing that I would ever have any way to live any kind of a life that I liked. I never had lived a life that I liked, not from the time I was a little boy. In our home when I grew up, things were pretty colorful. My dad was a bad drunk. My mother got very, very angry. Only the first 2 or 3 years, I guess, of my life at home felt safe. There was only a short period of time in my life before I got to Alcoholics Anonymous that I had any sense of safety. And I listened to a 5th step yesterday, and the guy that I was with never had, that he could remember ever in his life, a sense of safety. It was not safe in his house because his brother was always kicking him around, and his mom was crazy, and his dad was gone all the time, and only when his dad was around was he even given a sense of protection. He'd wait. He wouldn't go in the house after school if his mom's car wasn't parked there in the driveway, because he knew if he went in the house, his brother, who was 3 years older, would treat him very badly. And so he wouldn't go in there. He was desperately afraid of his brother. And he was afraid to be outside because the kids in the neighborhood were always kicking his butt. And so he had, and he was terrified. He was terrified. He really had this notion that he would wind up dead. He'd crouch in cupboards and stuff like that. And many of us come from that. And it doesn't help us to come into a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous and feel particularly safe. It just doesn't help us a whole lot. We're not the kind of people that can relax and take our packs off. When I got to Alcoholics Anonymous, I got here because a bail bondsman brought me here. I was living in a little shed over in Glendale, and this guy saw me walking down the street one day, and he had bailed me out of jail a bunch of times. And I was sick. I had no money, and I had no booze, and those amphetamines had long since gone away, and I was in terrible shape. And he pulled his car over to the curb, and he tapped on the horn, and I looked over there, and I recognized him, and we talked for a minute. He said, "I'm going to take you someplace today." A bail bondsman did. I was 29 years old and living in a shed in Glendale. I thought it was a double garage. It turned out it was just a little shed. No car had ever gotten into that thing. But I was totally addled. I was in a crazy situation. I'd been in and out of jail. I had been in a situation where I knew I was insane. I knew that. I'll tell you how I knew it. I have a memory of a clock radio in that room, and the thing would just start to play in the middle of the day. It would just begin to play, and I would unplug it and it'd still play, and I'd take it out on the dirt and put it in the dirt, and it played, and I had this weird feeling that it wasn't really playing, except I knew it was playing, and I could hear it, and I couldn't shut it off. And if I got a bottle and had a few drinks, the radio would stop. But until I had a couple of drinks, the radio played. And it made me crazy. It wasn't bad music, but it was just like I wouldn't have chosen the music. I also had another problem because I had a rat in that room. And he scared me to death. He scared me. I wake up under the cot on that sticky linoleum floor, and that rat would be there looking at me. It terrified me because he was a big guy, and I would think about trying to get up on the bed, but I knew if I did, he'd rush me. And I knew he'd win. And so I just lay there and hunker down, and I would lay there for an hour in the dark. And then I'd look at my little clock radio, and then 7 minutes had gone by. And that rat was still there. And one morning, he was still hanging around when it got light, and I noticed that he had turned into a pair of socks laying over there in the corner in that little room. And so I knew I was nuts. I knew that. I knew that if this guy, this bail bondsman, took me to the hospital, they might find that brain tumor. I was 29 years old, and I was living in a shed with 3 other guys, and I never saw him, but I heard him. There was a shower, and I could hear him out in the shower. And so I was in bad shape, and there were warrants out for my arrest, and I had been married twice. I had 3 little boys. I hadn't seen them. I didn't want them to see me like that. I just was hunkered down, really. I didn't have any possessions except that radio and a little box of, I think, sheets or something in there. And I had an old copy of Playboy magazine that I had bought in a fit of enthusiasm one afternoon. My social life. Honey, I'm home, that kind of thing. We really gave up a lot to come here, didn't we? Nothing. I mean, the life I have now is really quite amazing to meet Kevin and Tim and Rick and come down here and be laughing and talking about interesting stuff on the way down. Today is really quite a privilege for me. It's really quite a privilege for me. To be here with you is quite a privilege for me, and I'm glad that we're all together today. The day is going to go like this. We're going to do 45-minute sessions, and then we're going to have a 15-minute break. And then we're going to do and I'll keep an eye on the clock, so you can figure at about 9:45 on that clock, we'll be taking a 15-minute break. Move outside, smoke, whatever you're going to do, and then at 10 o'clock, come on back in here. And we'll do another 40, and we'll do it. And this may, if you want to talk during one of the 45-minute sessions, I don't care. Just take it outside so it doesn't disturb whoever might be wanting to do that, wanting to listen to whatever is going on. I'm going to share my experience. This is not here like a seminar about how to take the steps of the program of Alcoholics Anonymous so much as it is a report to you about how they told me to do it and what I did and what effect that it had on my life. And then at the end of the day, I guess we're going to do something about the traditions toward the end of the day. Is that on the schedule still, Michael? Yeah. All right. That'll be an hour, I think. Huh? Yeah. There, and you can, get your card signed and do all that stuff here. But it's my intention that we have fun here today, that we have an interesting time here today. It's my intention that by the end of the day, we all feel like we've spent our time together in a good way, There's, but we'll just have to see, because there's a presence here that we want to acknowledge too. God's here with us. The one presence that we never wanted to acknowledge or pay any attention to, the one piece of it that brings us to this deep need. There's a guy named Scott Peck that wrote a book called The Road Less Traveled. And he has written many books, and in many of those books, he exhibits an interest in alcoholics. Whether he's a member of AA someplace or not, I don't know. But he's kind of a spiritual guy, and he's written these books that took off. Everybody liked these books. And in the book, one book, he says, for us, for alcoholics, he says, wine is cheap grace. Cheap grace. Meaning there's something in me that I need very much that I don't have until I add a little chemical to my system. And then we come into Alcoholics Anonymous, and for some of you, less than a month. For some of you, more than a month. For me, years have gone by since I last had a drink. And the state that I was in when I came into Alcoholics Anonymous was such that I neither had this little piece of spiritual blessing that I need, and I didn't have booze, and it leaves you in a hell of a mess. Because there's no way that I can get comfortable, and I itch too much, and I'm ready to fight with whoever I'm around, quarrel, carry on. I never had the kind of beef on me that worked well in a bar, but I'm just pissy all the time. You know what I'm saying? It's just pissy. Just ill at ease, quarrelsome, judgmental, always feeling sorry for myself. That I never had a sense of well-being that I got when alcohol worked for me. It's an interesting thing. There's some promises that are in the book about what will happen to us if we take the steps. But I'm going to read these promises from the point of view of how I felt when alcohol really worked for me. When alcohol, and picture yourself with 4 or 5 drinks and you're at the bar. When alcohol worked for me, I lost interest in selfish things and I gained interest in my fellows. Didn't that guy at the next stool at the bar seem interesting for a moment or two? Self-seeking will slip away. I'm just enthralled with the fact that he's a jet pilot. I had no idea, right? We will comprehend. When alcohol worked for me, I understood the word serenity and I knew peace. When alcohol worked for me, and I would go in and knock back a couple of drinks, my whole attitude and outlook on life changed. When alcohol worked for me, fear of people and of economic insecurity left me. I wasn't afraid of you. I wasn't afraid. This is my last 20 I'm putting on the bar. Hey, plenty more where that came from. When alcohol worked for me, I intuitively knew how to handle situations that used to baffle me. I'd get home and my wife would say, "Where have you been?" I knew exactly what to say, what lie to come up with. When alcohol worked for me, I knew a new freedom and a new happiness. When alcohol worked for me, no matter how far down the scale I'd gone, I could see how my experience could benefit others. And I was glad to share that with you. I would not regret the past nor wish to shut the door on it. When alcohol worked for me, and I suddenly realized that booze is doing for me what I could not do for myself. There is a state then of, that's why Peck calls it cheap grace. I'm taken by a drink or 2 or 3 to a different place in my life where I can stand the world around me, where I can stand it. And my personal experience doesn't include a lot of drugs, it includes some. I loved amphetamines. I loved the uppers. I love methamphetamine hydrochloride. I love Dexamyl, where they'd mix that dexedrine with a little Milltown, and it was sort of like not quite so, but you could drink longer with it, and I loved all of that. And the result of it brought me to the point where I'm living in a shed in Glendale, California, and I have no way to earn a living, and I've not seen those families, not seen those kids, and I come into Alcoholics Anonymous, and something very strange happened to me. On the 14th of August that year, 1966, I was a drunk, and I was drinking as much as I could. And on the 15th of August, the next day, I didn't drink anything. The next day, I didn't drink anything. And that is a profound shift for me. And I had been in states, of course, where I didn't drink for a day or two. Once I quit for 6 weeks, but I had never been able to make it for any period of time. I started drinking when I was 16 years old, and so my drinking career and those pills were about a 13-year span in my life. And I drank as hard and as long as I could. And the party was over when I was 29. The party was over, and I was in bad shape. And I really knew that the next stop for me would be Skid Row or the Nut House or County Hospital. And I had no doubt about it, and I wasn't afraid of it necessarily. It just seemed like that's what's going to happen to me next. And a bail bondsman came along and brought me here. And I think if you took just a minute to think back on your own experience, since there's some new guys in the room, new men and women in the room, what brought you here? How is it that you're sitting here being this uncool on a Saturday morning to be in an AA step study workshop? That cannot be what you were hoping for 60 days ago. You know what I mean? I mean, what happened to the Cadillac that you were going to buy? Where in the hell did that lady go? How is it that you're tapped out in all the ways that you are? How is it that these symptoms may apply to you? We were having trouble with personal relationships. Oh, yeah. Oh, to the extent I had any personal relationships, they were troubled. We couldn't control our emotional natures. See, this is about untreated chronic alcoholism. It's not about being wasted under the bridge. It's about how am I living my life in sobriety? How am I living my life now that the booze is out of my system? I can't stand it. My skin is crawling. Do I have any ability to control my emotional nature? No. Not just do I fly off the handle, which I do, but can I sit in that chair over there and bring about the same emotions in myself that liquor used to bring about for me? No, I can't do that. I can't control my emotional nature. I just can't do it. We were a prey to misery. Was I a victim of misery, of feeling crappy? Sure I was. Was I a victim of depression, just shoving it all down there? Yeah. Could I make a living? No. Couldn't seem to make a living. No way was I going to make a living. I couldn't do it. You know what I was trying to do? I was selling encyclopedias door to door. That is not a good thing for a drunk to do. Hard to get out the door, hard to be looking fit, hard to be looking squared away. You go up and knock on somebody's door wearing one shoe, and you ain't going to be doing much mercantile commerce that day, I'll tell you. We used to work new baby leads on the photo albums. Do you remember that? The lady would have a baby, and you go up, and the drill was to try to tell her about, I can sell you these photos, and you can go down and get your baby's photo taken. And we can give you this $300 leather album. And all you have to do, that's absolutely free. All you have to do is agree and pay for photographs, one every month for the next year. And these women would just come to the door with that little baby in their arms, and they'd be upset that the door rang at all, and they wouldn't want to talk about, I don't want any photographs. If they were too ornery, we'd say, why, what's wrong with the baby? And it'd just get nasty with them, just, awful crap. And they would run us off. I didn't really ever want to be an encyclopedia salesman. You know what I mean? It's not like I didn't want to be an AA, but if a high school counselor had said, how are you going to spend your life? What's your dream? Those jobs would not have been it. It would not have been it. Sweeping a warehouse? I don't think so. I don't think so. I hated that job. Pulling the sugar beets? No. No. Taking those railroad ties and throwing them into the creosote vat and pulling them back out? No. No. I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. I couldn't make a living. I could not make a living. The only cash that came into my hand was from a bad check, or when I was still with my wife. If she left her purse by the door, I get a little cash that way. And she got very cagey about where that cash was kept. Couldn't make a living. Had a feeling of uselessness, full of fear, unhappy, couldn't seem to be of real help to other people. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And you know what's weird? Most of us have some kind of a shirt-tail notion that we would like to be helpful to other people. We'd like to be the one offering the help and not the one begging the help. We really have that. It's an odd thing. It's kind of buried sort of deeply. It took me a while in AA to get in touch with that. But that seems to be a key yearning that I have, is to be useful in the world, to be of service. And that sounds too much like servant to really get my ego going. And then a few years after I was sober, I noticed that the people that were making the money in the world were useful. Somebody told me you could drive down every street in the city and just from the size of the guy's house decide how useful he was in the world. We drove by the other day a house of a guy that's known to us as being a very effective filmmaker. He got a big place. You can't even see that house from the road. He's got a big place in a very nice part of town. But look how useful he is. He provides work for a lot of people. He provides entertainment for a lot of people, Steven Spielberg. He provides so many people with a way to themselves make a living. He entertains not just a nation, but the universe, the English-speaking world, and others. Very useful guy. And you know what you get for being useful? You get compensation for that. And I think we have to drop this idea that being useful is like being a doormat, like being somebody that's always running around doing what other people tell them to do. Because we all have to come to some life that we can stand to live. And I had to do that. But the fact that I identified with and they added one more thing for me. They said, you know, all of these are symptoms of chronic untreated alcoholism. You took the booze out. You've been treating your problem with booze, and then the booze is taken out of your system. What are the steps for? They're only this. You got to do something so you can stand to live in this world without chemical peace of mind. Because it's quite clear that if you keep going that chemical peace of mind, number one, you will get no more peace of mind. No more, it's gone. All you can go for now is oblivion. And number two, you will probably die. Which doesn't scare us a hell of a lot. Okay. You know what really scares us? May not die. May not die. Maybe just more jail, more of that drunk tank, more of that felony tank, more of that Chino, Sybil Brand, more of that. I mean, it's just like, am I going to maximum or medium security? What is that? Do I really want that life? Do I really want to be a number? A number? And so we have to find a life we can stand, because we got a lot of years ahead of us. I'm 63. I got 30 years. Medical science is going to keep me alive for 30 years. Do I want those 30 years to be just a piece of crap? I couldn't stand that. And so ultimately we have to sit in a room and see if there isn't some other way we can live this life. Ultimately, we have to sit in a room and know that the way I'm going to choose to live this life is not going to take me where I want to go, because I want chemical peace of mind. And I'm so angry at everybody around me. I got so many points to prove. I want to make sure the whole world knows what a crappy job my folks did raising me, how mean my mother was, how drunk my dad was. I have a brother that died a few years ago, and he died pushing a grocery cart in Atlanta, Georgia, just pushing it around the town. Very angry guy, not an alcoholic, not an addict. But he had a point to prove, and he and I talked about it before he died. And the point that my brother Bob had to prove, and that made him so angry, was that my mom and my dad did a shitty job raising him. And they did. And he got beat and he got mistreated, and he was 12 years younger than me, so we kind of escaped. And he's left with my dad, and then my mom died, and then the stepmom, and the next stepmom, and all of that. And he was treated with unspeakable cruelty, not just at home, but in school and high school. He was the kid that the high school students in gym class in the Philippines, because that's where my dad went, urinated on him one afternoon. Just knocked him down, and everybody, that kind of humiliation. And nobody did a thing for him. My dad couldn't do it. We didn't know about it till years later, and probably wouldn't do. He's in the Philippines. And he lived a terrible, horrible life. And he had a point to prove. And the point is, you know what? Here's my cart, and I want the world to know. I know I'm the little advertisement running around in the world to let everybody know what kind of a job my folks did raising me. And can you see how crappy the job was that they did? Because now I'm pushing a cart, and I'm in this greasy old top coat, and I don't have a nickel, and I'm begging for food on the streets. And if my folks had done their job right, I could be somebody. And that's his message to the world. And when he got pneumonia and then had a heart attack, he went into a hospital and he died. I tried multiple times to get him to move out here to California with me, because I'm sober in AA. Come on. No. He had a lot of reasons for staying where he was, but the real reason underneath it all is he had a point to prove. Now, that's the kind of a life we live. I got a point to prove. I got to live in a shed when I'm 29 years old, so everybody gets that my folks did a crappy job raising me. I'm angry about it, and I can only see that. And it takes a lot of booze to keep any kind of sanity from coming into my life, saying, why don't you drop the point and get on with your life? Can you see that just because you want to stick the tip of that knife into your father, you have to jam it through your whole body to get to him? You're ruining your life over a point you want to make. But we do that. We do that. And I did it as long as I could stand it, and we all do. And finally, one day, because of God's grace, we come to a point in our lives where we know we can't go on like this, and we know we don't have any shot at any other kind of a life. And we're still blaming people. God damn it, if my stepmother had woke me up on time that morning in junior high school and sent me down to take the Yale entrance examinations, I would have smoked those tests. God knows where I'd be today, but she has shackled me, that old bitch. Give me a double. One of the reasons that I love to blame people for the quality of my life is because underneath that blame is the illusion that if only they hadn't screwed up my life, I could manage my life. It's their fault. See, the idea is the problem is out there. Out there. And a funny thing happened. On the 14th of August, 1966, out of all of that, there were warrants still out for me. I had to go back to jail sober 5 months for checks I'd written while I was drinking. But on this particular day, I had a very interesting conversation with a guy in the club in Glendale. I'd been going to those meetings over there for a few weeks like you have here. And I got drunk again. And we all have. Because you know why? We can't quit. We cannot quit drinking. So we quit for a day, or we quit for 6 weeks. The longest I ever quit was 6 weeks. Or we quit and I'm going to quit forever, and then 3 weeks later we come across, as I did, a stash of money and a stash of amphetamines, and I'm gone again, I'm gone again, I'm gone again. And on this particular morning I was out of pills and out of booze, and I walked over to the club because I knew where it was by then. And I walked inside, and there was a guy inside there doing his job in AA, a guy that had the door open and the coffee on, and it's in the middle of the morning. And he recognized me from the meetings. Guy like Michael, just doing his job in AA, just doing it. Guy like people that got here and set it up and did the deal and made the coffee. And I walked in, he said, "How you doing?" I said, "I'm not doing any good." He said, "What happened?" I said, "I got drunk again, let everybody down." He said, "Oh, are you alcoholic?" He kind of smiled when he said, "Are you alcoholic?" I didn't even know what to say to him. But he was being kind to me, and I needed a place to hide that day. And I didn't want to tell him a lie. And I didn't know what to say to him. And when he said, "Are you alcoholic?" I thought for a minute, and I said, "Yeah. I've been an alcoholic for about a month now." Just a mild case, you know. It's sort of like, I'm not going to cause you any trouble. Just mild. I'd already had, you ever have a convulsion? That makes people nervous. Have you noticed that? Made me feel better. Every time I had one, I felt better afterwards. But people that are around you don't like it much. Especially if you're behind the wheel of a car. They don't like that. My sponsor once told me that he wanted to die quietly in his sleep like his uncle did, and not kicking and screaming like the passengers in the car that was being driven by his uncle. He said, "Are you alcoholic?" I said, "Yeah, I've been an alcoholic about a month now." He said, "You say you're an alcoholic and you drank?" I said, "Yeah. Yeah, I did." He said, "Oh, yeah, we do that. We do that." He said, "In fact, you'll drink no matter what. Alcoholics drink no matter what." And it's really important that we get that. We drink no matter what. I'll be home right after work. No, I drink. I'll bring the check home. No, I drink. I'll stop and pick up the kids. No, I don't do that. I'll meet you at your mother's. No, I drink. I drink. I'll wait for you. I'll be there at the hospital. As soon as that baby's born, you let me. No, I don't go there. No. The moment in time that she needed me the most, I'm not there. Can't be there. Cannot be there. Because what? I drink no matter what. That's the hallmark effect of an alcoholic. There's nothing that gets in the way. No. Oh, maybe an hour here, an hour there. Maybe I'm out of money. Maybe I have to wait. I drink. I drink no matter what. And I'm glad when those people are out of my life, because they are a terrible interference with me and booze. I got some drinking to do, and I can hardly do it when you're sitting here with your dad. Nice to meet you, sir. I drink no matter what. And when he said that, he said, good, well-intended people in AA are going to tell you don't drink no matter what. And he said, you know what? You're going to drink no matter what. And I knew he was talking about me. I knew he was right. He didn't say it in a nasty way. He just said it. He was kind to me that day. And I got it that day. I got it that I know I will drink no matter what. And I didn't have any sudden rush of anything. It's so weird. The day was the day. I didn't drink that day. I didn't drink on the 15th. I didn't drink on the... 9 months later, I kind of went, oh my God, I haven't had a drink. How long has it been? Jesus, hey, 8 or 9 months. And I go, how the hell did that happen? And it happened from the day that I knew I would always drink. That it was over. I will always drink. Now, what brings us to that point is not the subject of anything we're going to say today, because that is just a surrender that is deeper than anything we've ever done. It isn't that I want to live a good life suddenly. No, no, no. It isn't that, all right, I'm going to quit. No. If we could quit, we would have done that, and you wouldn't be sitting here in Paramount on a Saturday morning talking about the steps of the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. People that can quit aren't here. You know why they quit? They quit. They're out buying some shit for Thanksgiving. I don't know what they're doing, the poor devils, but they're not here. They're visiting their mothers-in-law. Isn't that great? We don't want that life anyway, do we, really? No. But they quit. We are a people that cannot quit. And that's what drove me. And the fact that I cannot quit and I stopped drinking is not inconsistent. The drill in Alcoholics Anonymous isn't how to quit drinking. There's no such thing. If it was about quitting, as we all know, they would tell us that. Where are the steps? There's some place around here. The traditions are back there. The steps are, okay, across the top. What does that first step say? Something about admitting we're powerless over alcohol and that our lives had become unmanageable. I just would like to point out to you that if this was about quitting, that far left plaque up there would say, step 1, quit. Knock that shit off. And what does it say? It says we admitted we couldn't do that. And yet here we are. We all have birthdays. What is this about? Here, Lyle, 9/12/86. What the hell happened to Lyle that day? Did he quit? No, no. The reason he bought one of these bricks is because he can't quit and he ain't drinking. I don't know Lyle, but I'm sure if he was here, he'd tell us, I didn't quit. I didn't quit. What about old Bud, the Godfather, November 27, 75? Lenny R. Woo! All these people. What are they doing? They're celebrating a miracle in their lives. A miracle that they didn't come about and do. Chuck C. was a hell of a guy. He used to talk around Southern California and all over the world. He said about his last drink, he said this. He said, if I'd have known that was going to be my last drink, I would have had 2. So this is not about quitting. This is about coming to the point where we know we're toast. You got to get that you are toast. That's what that first step could say. We admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. You got to get that you are toast. And I did that day. When he said, you're going to drink no matter what, I said, I got it. I didn't say anything. I just went, oh. I didn't wave a white flag. I went, oh. I didn't say, okay, I'll never drink again. I went, oh. I didn't say, you know, I got to call my probation officer and let him know I quit. Oh. Let me get a hold of my ex-wives. Oh. Okay, good. That's wonderful. I'm glad that's over. Let me start paying that child support. Oh. I didn't know. I didn't know. And and we don't have any credibility with, the guy told me, you know what, this is the last day you're going to drink. You won't drink again after this day. I wouldn't have believed him. He couldn't have known it anyway. We just don't know. We just don't know. We just come to a point where we are gone. And then we have to do something about the condition we're in when we're here. And for a while, we get by on unity, and for a while we get by on service. And then we turn our attention to a crazy thing called recovery. Not the recovery from the hangover, not the recovery from bad nutrition, not the recovery from feeling bad, but there is a state of mind that I have going for me that is called chronic untreated alcoholism. It's a point of view. It's a state of mind. The problem is in here. The problem is in my mind. And there are very tempting reasons that you might say, well, I'll just sprinkle a little Prozac on that puppy and bring it around. And that doesn't seem to work for us either. It seems like we have to give up our right to chemical peace of mind. And so what we're going to talk about today is what on earth are we going to do to make sobriety comfortable, to make sobriety a matter of joy, to bring happiness into our sobriety. If we're stuck in a state of sobriety, if we can't go back to that, if there really is no chemical peace of mind available to me, what the hell am I going to do? What will I do? And how do these steps bring about anything at all in my life? 15 minutes. Come back at 10 o'clock. We'll get going. Thanks. We left off talking about the fact that we are the subjects of miracles, that the days when we can pretend that anything less than a miracle happened to us is they're gone. They're gone. Because we had placed ourselves beyond human aid. We could not quit drinking on our own. We did not do that. And if we're beyond human aid, simply coming to the Alano Club and being with other members of Alcoholics Anonymous does not seem to get the job done either. Otherwise, people would never leave. They would stick around here. They wouldn't suddenly go out and commit suicide or drink or whatever they're doing. And we've all seen a lot of that. And we've all wondered why it is that they go and we don't, and that's the question that we can torment ourselves with. And it's probably a good one not to get into here this morning. I would simply like to talk about the rest of the day where these steps fit into our lives. I might add that one of the questions that seems to come up a lot is how can I put balance in my life? I got a wife and kids at home and I got a job and I got an AA thing going on, and it feels like everyone that's invested in one of these parts of my life wants all my life. My mate wants all of it. The kids want all of it. My boss wants all of it. My creditors want all of it. And my sponsor wants all of it. And I don't know how to work that out. It's a question that an ego will always ask. What about the balance in my life? And it's exactly the wrong question, and the book does not ever address this vital issue of balance because it's a non-issue. You know what the word is that the book uses? Abandon. Abandon. Give yourself to this simple program, complete abandon. Can I at last abandon myself to God? Am I abandoning myself? Am I leaving myself and investing in whatever life is serving up for me? And the ego doesn't like that. Do you know why? Because if I abandon myself to my life, my ego doesn't have any control. I'll put it another way. I was brought up in a very religious home. Fundamentalist, Protestant, hellfire and brimstone stuff. They had rules there that were just amazing. Amazing. We weren't supposed to dance because it's sinful. Can you get, and sex, oh my God, oh, ooh. The ultimate message on sex in our home is this: sex is filthy and disgusting and ugly, and you should save it for the one you really love. You go, okay, Mom. There, now that settles me down. Crazy stuff that was really hard to reconcile with, how you really knew things might be. Crazy stuff. Church 5 and 6 times a week. Give your heart to Jesus. Oh, God, no. My uncle did that. And you know what they did to my uncle shortly after he went down to the front of the Church of the Air in Billings to get saved? You know what they did? Seemed like it was no time at all. They sent his ass to China to be a missionary. And I'm going, no, thanks, stay away from that front of that church. You don't want to be doing that. That's crazy. Years went by, and I asked him if he liked being a missionary in China. He said, I hated it. I said, how come? He said, I don't have any gift for language. I'm supposed to learn some little Chinese dialect. And I couldn't communicate. I said, really? He said, yeah, I wasn't any good at it. He said, it turns out there's a paper-thin difference between the Chinese word for Lord and the Chinese word for pig. And I told him about the pig for 4 years and came home, and nobody seemed to sign on for anything. A little frustrating. So I knew not to be going to China. And so the choices then, when we're faced with this kind of a whether we're going to get engaged, enrolled in the solution offered by a spiritual program, are these. I can spend my life crawling around on the sticky linoleum floor in the shed barking like a fox, or I can make a decision to turn my will and my life over to the care of God, who will send me to China to be a missionary. Those are tough calls. Boy, they are tough calls. What's the real problem with it? The real problem is this. If I'm laying on the floor in the garage barking like a fox, I don't have any control over my life. And my ego really wants control over my life. If I'm being sent to China to be a missionary, I don't have any control over my life. And it's like, there's got to be a different way. And so I choose the middle ground. What's the middle ground? Well, go to a lot of meetings and hope that nobody asks you to do anything you don't want to do. Go to a lot of meetings and hope that you can keep your spouse happy at home. Go to a lot of meetings and hope that somehow or other my kids will turn out okay, even though I'm not a very good father because I'm never around them. Go to a lot of meetings and hope that I can make the money I want to make, and I don't seem to be able to go out and really give myself wholeheartedly to any kind of a career. I don't have any education. I can't get any education, and I'm kind of screwed. And so I'll just go to a lot of meetings and hope. Hope. Oh, you want me to go to they got a hold of me to go down to the mental hospital in Norwalk over here. Okay, I'll go. You want me to go to? Okay, I don't care. You're going to. I was 9 months sober. We got out of the car. They said the building's right there, that red brick building here at Metropolitan State Hospital. There's a nut house in there. We're going to go put on a meeting. Okay. We got out of the car. There were 6 of us. We started to walk in. I suddenly got why we're all there. I'm there. There, 6 people are going in there to that nut house, and 5 of them are coming back out. I thought, Jesus, that's the way they do it here in AA. That is cold, man. My next thought, I can outrun every one of these old fools, you know what I mean? I can be over a cyclone fence in a heartbeat. I've left some skin under my arm on cyclone fences, but I'll get over it. I can get past that. And my next thought, with the weirdest of thoughts, was a surrender, because I thought to myself, if they think I belong in that nut house, maybe I do. Maybe I do. And I just kept walking. We went in. The meeting lasted an hour. At the end of the hour, they said the Lord's Prayer. And the orderly took those other people with their white robes and blue slippers upstairs. And we all walked out. 6 of us walked out into that warm California evening and got in Bill Christian's old Chrysler. And I sat in the middle in the back seat and rode back to Glendale that night. Slept in my own bed. And I knew that I had trusted somebody for the first time since I was a little boy. I'd trusted another person that looked to me like an adult for the first time since I was a little kid. And so I know that something's happening to me. I know that there is a shift going on. I remember the night the guy said, you want to get to sleep without drinking? Say, make your bed. Put clean sheets on your bed. And I wondered how the hell he knew about those sheets. Yeah. Psychiatrist never mentioned the sheets. And I was 5 days sober, and those sheets were a mess. And so was the mattress underneath the sheets. You can only flip that mattress over so many times, you know. stinky in that room. But, man. But when he said, put clean sheets on your bed, I knew he knew something. You've always known stuff. I knew he knew. And then he said, say a prayer. And I didn't like the prayer thing, but I knew he knew about the sheet thing. And I went back to my room that night, 5 days sober, and found a sheet in that little box. I had a sheet. I found it. I put a clean sheet on that mattress. I couldn't. The psychiatrist, the base chaplain, none of those people had ever mentioned the sheets. But this guy, this little mopey guy in AA, knew about the sheets. And so I made the bed. I made the bed, and then I had a decision to make, Am I going to say that prayer?